Are we ready?
We're rolling, so
Sweet, we're rolling.
I'm going to take this off. I don't want to be
Yeah,
the only guy with
I felt
headset.
uncomfortable for a minute there. Yeah, this is my baby bro wants me to do some podcasts because he thinks it'd be fun. And I do too. So I'm glad that we are giving this a good go.
I'm
So
excited.
yeah, I'm excited too. I don't even know kind of what we're gonna do most of the time, but we're gonna kind of make it up as we go, and I think it'll be cool because we do all sorts of interesting things. We work with lots of interesting people. We develop methods of doing things, whether it's at work or at home or friendships or whatever. And it'd just be kind of fun to talk about that and capture it and let the world know all my secrets.
Well, yeah. I mean, since you went on that elk hunt, I was like, the podcast has to happen now.
Is that business related? No, but it's cool.
It's just like it's a notch on your belt that makes the podcast more palatable.
I also had to add a notch to my belt because I've been eating so much elk meat. Elk for days. Yeah, no, it's like for me, being in business at the level I am is intense at times. And I do a pretty good job of compartmentalizing it, but I don't take my blood pressure as much as I probably should, or my doctor thinks I should. So doing things like the elk hunt, which was an incredible opportunity that was a gift from a dear friend that I work with a lot, I'll get into, was something that I realized I needed. Not necessarily elk hunt all the time when I need like a step outside of the box, but making sure that I make time to do something that's for me. Because I think it get convoluted, like not working and doing things with my family feels like awesome all the time. And it feels like I'm not working, but I think there's a difference of just doing something for yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's tough because it puts a strain on your family, because they want you, because they're used to you working a lot and you want to prioritize them because that's the most important thing in your life at the end of the day. Um, but I think it's important to maintain a small amount of individual like free time. And that was a large amount, but I haven't done anything like that ever, like a hunt like that, number one. And I haven't really been gone for that period of time. I was gone for almost 2 weeks. Um, so it kind of filled a huge void that I felt like I needed to fill for the past 20 years. And it was awesome. And Rye really made the space for me for that. Who's the like matriarch of our family and the boss lady and, one I love a lot. And, she's like, I kind of like asked as though it wasn't going to be a thing. Like, oh yeah, Jared's going on an elk hunt and I can go. Be super cool. And she's like, yeah, you should go. And I was like, what? I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, you should do things that you want to do that are going to make you happy. And I am not used to that level of like, I guess it just comes with a healthy relationship, of like somebody that's that close to you that can think outside of themselves enough to say like, you should do that. That's cool. And so it was that moment of her saying that was huge in of itself. And I think helped me realize like, wow, my family is really important. So I need to prioritize them enough. And I have been enough for them to even be willing to do that. Because I think if you're not prioritizing your family, I don't know if they'd want to make space for you to do 2 weeks of your own activity. They might be like, well, we want that because we don't get nothing. So I think over the years of working, it's been like, obviously I've been working for a long time, but the grind of my company has been 13 to 14 years, of the build up. And I think one of the biggest things that my team, there's some key people in there, Noah, Courtney, Tree, Abel, Jody, instrumental people over the years that have been like, you need to prioritize your health. Eli, Jed, these are people in my life that kind of like are like, you need to like make sure you take. And so I think over the past 5 years, I've been kind of implementing that of like, Fridays are a looser day for me. I can kind of do things like this. I can do some of the things that I need to do to maintain some health. And then the weekends, I have to shut it off. I've got to remove myself from that matrix of the work environment I've made so that I can be present with my family. And it's been great. It's been really good for me and my family.
Yeah. You've got a lot on your plate with Omnibuild, with all your employees, all the projects, and to be able to compartmentalize, like you said, like how does that skill come to be, like in over the years of all of the years of you running businesses and doing it at such a high level? How do you train yourself as a business owner to compartmentalize and keep things where they need to be so that it's not infiltrating every moment of your life?
We come up with these like weird words that like we think describe our methods of what we do, and some of them aren't real words, but some of them are. But one of the words that we've been using a lot more is team approach. And so I'll say something a lot, and there's this old saying, what's good for the gander is good for the goose, or what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I can't remember which way it goes, but I think it means the same thing.
Sounds like it goes both ways.
Yeah, it could. And so, I'll say things that it'll hit me in the middle of the night, and I'm like, oh, I should do that too. Because I'm like, team approach. We have to do team approach because that's what makes things manageable.
Mhm.
And then I realized that I need to do team approach too. I need to pull my team in to support me. And over the past, I'd say 3 years, we've really been implementing that. Like Christy, Brooke, Courtney, Jody, Luke, Haley, Spencer, Olivia, Noah, Deb, Matt, Pace. We've all been working to help support each other and actually really supporting me too. And so I think I'm always doing it for the company, and recently what's happened is the company's doing it for me too. And it's been a really rewarding feeling. I mean, when I went on that 2-week trip, I'm like, how do I leave my family? And then, like, right behind that, I'm like, how do I leave my company? And they're like, oh, we got it. And I'm like, are you sure? I made this huge, we don't need your list. We got it. And it was like a really cool feeling, and it was fine. And I think a part of like trust, which is a big thing that I've learned over the years, and like, Tree's been very instrumental in that. She's one of my closest friends and mentor and things like that to a degree, even though I'm her big brother, she still mentors me. And, so she's always like, you got to trust. And I think a big thing I've learned about trust is that it's not it's something that for me was really hard because I'm like, I give trust, and then one thing would happen, like, I don't trust anymore. So one of the things I've learned with trust is that it's a learning curve. You got to give it, it's gonna get broken because it's not that people do it intentionally or situations arise intentionally, that just it just happens. There's freak of nature things that go on in the world where something happened that's unavoidable, and you can turn it into a huge trust break, or like undermine your relationship with the people around you, or you can turn it into, wow, that sucks. Like, what are we going to do different next time? And that's kind of the philosophy that we've kind of instilled here is like, now obviously there's trust of like, I broke into your house and saw your crap and like destroyed everything. And I'm like, that's a trust that can't be fixed. But things that happen that used to kind of ding at my trust level, I kinda now, like, don't put in that same category, and I'm more like, I wanna, like, actually pull that in, think about it, not react right away, and learn how we're gonna grow from that, you know? And that's one of the things that Courtney and I have been working on in the handbook of, like, giving a bunch of trust to people and saying, "Hey, this is what you can do and the decisions you can make," without really asking, because we trust you, you know? And at times I'm like, "Why would you do that?" And then I'm like, "Oh, right, it's in the handbook. We set that up. Cool." And then I'm like, "All right, I'm over it. We're good. Good job." And so, you know, it's about learning. Like, I don't want to become unteachable, you know? And a lot of times I say, like, somebody's like, "Let's start a new business, or let's start a new way of doing business," or something. Like, somebody said to me, like, "We should start a solar company." And I'm like, "I don't want to learn anything else. I'm kind of maxed out on learning." And you know, to me, solar is a huge learning curve because it's technology driven, and technology just is growing so rapidly that it's like once you decide to go into it, it's like you have to stay in the know of all the newest, latest, and greatest things. And I'm not a technology based company. I learned that recently in an endeavor that I was trying that we can get into later. You know, but I've learned that I need to stay in my lane. And when I say that, I could backtrack here a little bit, but that I would say a lot like I don't want to learn new things, you know, but it's not necessarily true. It's just that I'm learning the things that are probably more important, you know, that's what I made room for, like my relationships with my team, my family, you know, my friends, you know, and then how to kind of navigate those things. And I think that's what's more important to me than learning a new business and learning technology or those types of things.
Yeah, the value of having people that you can trust, and then that also trust you, reciprocate that and fuel a relationship that is like a family and a deep friendship.
Yeah.
And also employment and employer, you're getting a lot out of that that helps you focus on what you're already really good at
Yeah.
and grow and help these other people grow. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think the coolest thing I heard the other day was somebody was talking to one of my employees' dads, and Ed said, who Ed's like a father figure to me, and he's also a partner in a different business that I have, and which is Omni Properties too, because Omni Property wasn't available. um, you know, the employee's dad, Ed said, "Oh yeah, your son works for Matt," and the dad said, "No, he works with Matt," and I love that. I tried to lean away from I'm their boss, as in, like, you know, I feel like it's a team. Like, I can't do what I do without them, and vice versa. You know, I mean, they could start companies and do similar things to what I'm doing, but the environment that we've built, the team that we've built of helping each other do things on the weekends, helping each other build homes, fix their homes, pulling material out of the shop that we've collected over time, using equipment and tools and things that we've built together. You know, it is like a team family approach to it, and I think that's why people like to be a part of it. And I don't think it's because we pay a certain rate. I think all that stuff has something to do with it, pay time off. I think that stuff has a lot to do with it, but I think there's a lot more than that. I think it's about being a part of a bigger thing, you know, wearing a hat that shows that you're a part of this group. You're part of this crew, a part of this family, and it's a pretty big force to be reckoned with, you know. And you know, I think that that's kind of the culture we've tried to create.
yeah, let's talk about that force. You got how many employees do you have at Omnibuild?
It hovers between like 45 and 49 employees right at the moment. Um, you know, we were looking at this the other day. You know, we're really um, trying to set the company up in a way where it's more defined of what people's roles are, and it's been a process of learning. But we were talking about our employees the other day, and we hover right around that amount, 46 to 49, but we feel like we're working 200 per day, like between our subs, the people that we have relationships with. There's certain subs that now pretty much just work with us most of the time. They have their own companies. They do a different type of work than what we're doing, whether it's drywall, insulation, masonry, different type levels of tram cabinetry. But at any given moment, we feel like there could easily be 200 people in the field that we're managing, and it's a lot. It's a lot of circumnavigating relationships and weird situations and things like that. So over the years, one of the things that my partner Abel, which we're no longer partners anymore, and we can get into all that in another time, or even today whenever it actually comes up. But one of the things that when we started the company, it was me and him in a hotel room, and we were traveling on the road working, and it wasn't going well for our families. And we felt like we needed to shift that. And we decided that um, we would start in a company when we got back home. And so we started, got our licenses, or he got his license, which then I got mine. But that was just the order of things. I was going to start the business and he was going to go get his license. And so we did that. And one of our first morals of our company was we want to treat the people we're working with the way we would want to treat ourselves. And so we've always wanted to put back into the company as much as we could to make people feel like it wasn't just like, let's go punch clocks, let's go be a part of something, and that tool, like Omnibuild to me is a gigantic tool. And if you're a part of that tool, then you have use of that tool, you know, at different capacities. And so I think building it in that manner is what's made people want to come work here. I know, because I think we're one of the bigger companies around that are like Omnibuild, like construction wise. There's bigger manufacturing companies and Food Lion and different things like that. But as far as a construction company goes, I'd say we're one of the bigger ones around. And, we don't run a lot of ads. People come and want to work. People meet us and want to work. We've worked, one of the things we always say is attitude's way more important than experience. We'd rather train somebody or teach somebody that has a good attitude and work ethic as opposed to somebody that knows a lot that has a bad attitude, because that does not go over well in a tight community. It's pretty much push yourself out. I worked in New York City for a while, and that city's pretty brutal. And it's like, I felt like I've told people in New York City that moved there and like left after 6 months or a year. It's like, if you can't cut it, that city chews you up and spits you out. And it chewed me up and spit me out. I almost can't even stand to go there now. I think it's cool. I think it's like a really cool metropolis of like all the stuff. It's cool architecture, lots of different types of people, but the grind and the hustle up there is a lot. And I feel like that's the same kind of philosophy in a family that you create, not the type that you marry into and make babies. More the type you create around your business is that if you don't fit in that family, you ain't gonna last because you're not gonna feel like a part of it and you're gonna hate life. And you just kind of naturally find your way out. And it's just naturally happened that way through leadership, and the leadership isn't me, it's Justin and Ian and Orion and Kip and Graham and Daniel and Kenny and Corey and all the way down to everybody. Shea, John Epperly. I mean, you know, there's a bunch of leaders, and you don't just need to be in a leadership position to be a leader, you know? And I think that's a cool part too. People want to be a part of that and, that circle, you know, and so they work hard to kinda make their way into that, you know? We just uplifted a new, like, foreman, you know, and he's super excited. You know, he had tears in his eyes, I felt like. I could have been having tears in my eyes because 'cause we're supposed to have, like, the glacial effect this weekend. Everybody's, like, freaking out about this snowstorm coming, and somebody asked me last night at the high school basketball game, "What have you heard about the news?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, you mean the glacial effect?" And they're like, "I haven't heard that." And I was like, "Floyd's gonna become a glacier for the next 1,000 years after this." And they were like, "Seriously?" And I was like, "Wow, people are gullible." So, nah, we're supposed to have a big storm, and so it's cold and windy and getting gnarly, so we coulda just had, like, tears in our eyes because it was windy.
Yeah,
I don't cry
it's not real emotions.
anymore.
Yeah,
So, you know, I mean, it's just cool to see that because it felt cool for me to be like, "Here's the keys to your new truck. Here's your responsibilities. Here's a person you're in charge of, and here's the jobs you're in charge of." It's kind of a cool moment.
it's really
It's like
cool.
some independence, some opportunity, you know? So, you know, I'm excited. They seem excited. We'll see how they feel next week. You know, because I think, you know, you get into it and you don't realize the different levels of responsibility. And, you know, some people thrive in that and some people need some time to thrive in it. They need that kind of purgatory moment of like, what is, you know, nobody tells me what to do anymore. I just have to figure it out, you know. But it's cool to watch that process.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a lot of processes that you've been working on for years that seem to make Omnibuild stand out and have led to your successes as a great company in the area and some a company that a lot of people seek out um, because you have what I've heard is called the phases of Omnibuild. I've always been interested in how you outline that to clients and because it seems like it really gets people to the finish line or help them see the vision where the building a project, whether it's a home or a commercial project, is it's a big goal that people have. It's the biggest purchase you'll ever make in life.
It's huge.
And so there's a lot of stress that goes into that. And I think what you guys have done to make people feel comfortable, but not only that, bring the vision to fruition is like a well oiled machine.
That's a loaded compliment. But it's also a compliment. Thanks. No, you know, it's like a weird thing because I say things that I don't think make sense sometimes, but I think it makes sense in the moment, or nobody tells me it doesn't make sense, and I just keep saying it anyway. But there's kind of a lot to that. So, you know, when we meet a customer, one of the first things I say is we're engaging in a long term, short term relationship. It's got all the long term kind of emotions and feelings, but it's pretty short in the grand scope of things, you know? So it's like we're going to be dealing with financial issues and decisions around the place where you're going to like go to the bathroom every day, you know, and sleep every day and make food and potentially give birth to a baby in. You know, it's like if you do a home birth, you know, which is a thing. But it's a lot. And like I look at it that way and some people don't. They look at it as like a paycheck. Like I'm just gonna like pick up this client and I'm gonna work for them and I'm gonna get paid. And for me, I'm more than likely gonna see them at the Friday Night Jamboree or Food Lion or any of the little spots in Floyd because there's not many of them. And the last thing I want to do is be like, shoot, there's that person. I want to be like, high five, man. We got your job done. It's awesome. We're happy, you know. And so, you know, people initially think, man, OmniBuild's the most expensive or OmniBuild's blah, blah, blah. You know, The truth be told is we're just the most realistic. I think that we've taken a lot of time to coach our people that are in project management positions to price what we are basing on a very educated assumption of what they're going to want. A lot of people are going to go in there and price what they think people want or what they want to do to make the number desirable. Like, let's just price the whole house as carpet or linoleum because they can always upgrade, you know, and their number looks good up front, but at the end of the day, they're just going to have so many upcharges that it takes the fun out of the bill. And I want to get the bad news out of the way up front and be like, yep, I could tell your house is going to be 350,000 and you're going to do $50,000 in change orders, but leave that second part out, the change order part. Or I can tell you it's going to be 400,000. Let's figure out how to make that number work, um, and give you what you want and make this process fun because there's not going to be any change orders. I mean, there's always change orders of little things like that window needs to move over 2 feet, or man, I just went and stayed at my friend's house and their kitchen sink is awesome, and I got to figure out a way to get that. But we haven't priced the cheapest possible kitchen sink to begin with, so they already have a fairly decent budget. So, talking about the phases of Omnibuild, um, we teach our clients the process, and in that process, we're kind of teaching our teams of how to deliver that process, and so Courtney and I, mostly Courtney, she's like the business Omni-Build manager. She's great. She's a secret weapon is what I call her all the time. We've been developing that process, of like, how do we get from point A to point B? And in the beginning, it was like project management manager did all those steps. And now we've compartmentalized it into like 4 or 5 steps with 4 or 5 different teams, which me and Noah are kind of a team with Luke, Luke's hugely instrumental, and kind of that beginning relationship and what it takes, and Spencer, and then Courtney, and we'll kind of vet a client out, but even before we vet a client out, it goes through Brooke, and then it goes to Christy, who do the initial vetting and organizing of data, and then it's up to kind of the core, group of, Luke, Spencer, Courtney, Noah, and myself, of like, is this potentially like a client that we feel like is a good fit for OmniBuild? And then, yeah, we probably do, and then it goes back to Spencer, and Luke and Noah to kind of vet out the construction process and get some preliminary numbers, and then it goes to Haley and Olivia to kind of work through the next layer of numbers, and then back to the project manager to kind of pretty it up and pitch it, and so in all those phases that we've kind of come up with, that's kind of the growing phase, like talking about, let's talk about Olivia, our one of our youngest employees, She came in with very little experience. She's had some training in school to work under Haley, who is like our selections boss lady. She's does some minimal project management, but she's basically working on management level on every project in the company, which is a lot. She has a huge position. And Haley built that position with the help of Jesse, who no longer works here, who's on an adventure quest. You can find her on all different platforms and check out what she's doing. Jesse Benson. um, so back to Olivia. Olivia came on as underneath Haley to help with selections and has done very well. And recently, Olivia, well, a little bit about Olivia's position is, Haley organizes the jobs and then she works on picking out paint colors, finishes for homes, everything down to what we have picked silverware and sheets for projects. It depends on the level of help the customer wants. We want it to be a fun project. We want to offer every possible service they can want. And because it sucks to do a project that is stressful for a client. Because at the end of the day, what the hell are you in it for if everybody's stressed out? Because if my client's stressed out, then I'm stressed out. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I don't want to go to watch my daughter cheerlead or my son play soccer and enjoy it and not be thinking about an upset customer the whole time. Olivia recently, we had an opening at project management, and so we asked, do you want to kind of help out with it? And so she's not necessarily the full project manager of this project. We're doing a team approach, but she's in the role of communication, which she's training now in that. And so the most important thing is checking in with Haley first, making sure that she's okay with that and that she has the support she needs and supports the process, and she did. And, we're going through this process. So Olivia has come in as a little baby beginning helper to helping Haley a lot to now helping kind of more of the company and learning. So it's pretty cool. And that's how Haley came in as well. It's how Spencer came in. Spencer came in and was very green. He had some general construction background. And we've developed his whole system with him and him kind of leading it naturally. It's been great. We've given him the room to develop his kind of zone of the company. And he's done great with it. And we support him. And I go to counseling, which I don't really care to say that out loud. I mean, counseling could be looked at as a weird thing to do, or it could be, it's changed my life. And one of the things that my counselor says, she's like, you're intense and you're blah, 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 and this and that. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm here for. Lower my blood pressure and like learn how to deal with night terrors and, that I wake up in cold sweats from work. And I've been with her for a long time, and she always says kindness and firmness. I say that all the time in my mind. How do I be kind and firm in this moment? And I think it's made it very possible everything that's gone on.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm gonna blow a gasket. Like I'll call a rye, and I'm like, I'm gonna absolutely just lose it. And she's like, okay. Why? And by the time I'm done talking to it, I remember that kindness and firmness.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I'll think that's about the other person, but it's about me.
Hmm.
And the other person benefits from it for sure because I'm not an asshole, you know? But it's about how I'm reacting to it and how I let myself engage in it. Because if I'm changing my approach and I say I'm going to try and be kind and firm, which kind and firm is not like, oh man, I love you. Like, oh, it's okay. It's no, hey, you messed up, but like, I got your back still. And like, we're going to figure this out and let's talk about it. As opposed to like, you're a complete asshole and you screwed this whole thing up. And like, I'm considering writing you up and stuff. So those are kind of the three approaches. And the one in the middle, the kind and firm one, is direct and to the point, but also backing it up. Somebody that works for me who's super smart, and I'm super glad they're here, told me the other day, I try to lead with a compliment, talk about the meat and potatoes in the end, and then compliment after that. And I was like, that's a pretty cool process,
It's called a shit sandwich, right?
Yeah, 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 that's a good one. And so, and so, I think going back to phases and all that stuff, I think all that's important, and I think those are all little bits and pieces of all that, and I think communication is incredibly important, between all of us, and giving Spencer and Haley the opportunity to kind of change what they're used to and it be some of their idea is what makes it really work. We're having a shake up with crews right now, which is not because there's a problem. It's because we do it practically every year or multiple times when, we have a lot of really big projects coming up this year. And so I met with a bunch of my foremen, Ian and Justin and a couple others. And, initially I thought in my mind, this is what I'm going to do. And I immediately went back, and I think a lot of this is from counseling too, because I'll have a situation that I want to talk about, but I'll slow my roll and I'll think through it instead, and then I'll change my approach. Because I think if I go off of reaction, then it's usually not the best.
Yeah.
And so I met with them and initially was going in there to tell them what I was thinking of doing. But as soon as I walked, we sat in a trailer with a box heater, and it was kind of hilarious. It felt like some like covert ops mission of us like sitting on buckets in a trailer at a job site in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of cool because we had no service, so there was no distraction. Um, and I sat down to tell them what I thought they should do. And as soon as I sat down and looked down, I was like, "Oh yeah, what do you guys want to do?" And it actually went great. And what they had to say was better than what I was thinking and made more sense. And I learned that, they got this.
Yeah.
They and it's because I believe in them,
It's that
and
trust thing again.
yeah, yeah, and it's the family thing again, because you could be a part of a family where you're put down all the time and whatever, and that sucks. And you basically spend your life growing up being like, "Can't wait to get away from this," And I think what's kind of cool is creating that space where you're comfortable to talk about what you need, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a guy that works for us who is a little bit on the rougher side. And that's okay because that's just who he is. And, and I like him a lot. And, he told me at Christmas, I've never been a part of something that's this accepting and cool. And I've always worked at places where they just feel like everybody hates me and they just keep pushing me and I can never make anyone happy and I'm always under the pump and it's just terrible. And I finally feel like I'm in a place where people actually like what I'm doing. And you don't even understand how much that excites me and how much I want to be at work because of it. And I was like, that's awesome. That kid maybe has spent, I don't know because I'm not his counselor and I don't care to be completely. I'm there for him and he knows that. And that kid's probably had a rougher life. And this could be the first time in his life he's felt like a genuine belonging and part of something that is like real that he can rely on. And I don't know that to be true completely, but I feel like it is, and it feels good, and it's what it felt like he said to me. I mean, he didn't say that word for word, but I took it that way, and I feel real good about that, that we were able to create something that this person, because a lot of times I think, we're thinking about accepting all these people that have special needs and understanding in their current state of life, and we forget about the roughnecks and maybe they feel away too, but they're too rough to say that, you know, and we made a hole for that person to fit into, and they popped their head out and was like, "Cool, man, I feel supported. I'm going back," and so I just think it's pretty rewarding.
You guys lead with that example, so
It's really a damn shame, but I really think that construction or building has become a bad word for some people in their mind. Like, oh, I gotta hire somebody in construction because they're worried about being screwed over,
Mhm.
And I think that sucks. And I think there are a lot of good builders out there. And I think the part of our job has become convincing this person that they're okay and safe with us. And it sucks that you have to do that. But unfortunately, the building practice in the past 10 to 20 to 10 to 20 years, I think has really changed where, it was the model of I'm a builder, I have employees that work for me and they do the work to I'm one person managing a ton of subs that I have no real power over at the end of the day because they're not my employee. And I also am bidding it out to different subs because I want the cheapest price. And that's a dangerous game, and I grew up in construction. My whole life I was around it. I get picked up from school and go visit construction jobs with my grandfather. There was a tape measure in the glove box. I would no car seat. Back then, I'd play with tape measure in the front seat and go on these jobs and watch what he did on big, big jobs. I mean, I think he had 100 employees at one point. Um, and I learned a lot from that. And I learned the old school method of it. And that's why we built Omnibuild with as many employees that we have, because the truth of the matter is, and anyone that knows me will have heard me say this and probably think it's corny, but when a job is getting bad, I can send 50 people there and punch that job in the face and like do some serious work. Like if we're failing on something, I have the power to make a call and pull my family together and hammer something out. And that's a force to be reckoned with, and not a lot of people have that power. And I think that's what separates us from the companies where it's like a guy that's managing all these different subs that don't actually work for him. And I think, it's it's a pretty impressive tool, and I think that the people that we work for feel that, and they know when we're not hitting a deadline, I could just pull everybody in. Now, it could upset another customer for a minute, but we've done very well with that. We've done some huge projects in Floyd County and beat deadlines and beat budgets and things like that, and it's no small undertaking.
Yeah.
And it's not me calling a bunch of subs to get a job done that I don't even know because my other subs are all tapped out. It's me calling people I've worked with for 5 years, 10 years. Like, we need to go full Defcon. And they're like, "Yep, we know what that means. Let's go."
Yeah. What are some examples of some of the jobs that you've had to pull that DEFCON status on and punch the job in the face that you're super proud of?
We built a really big farm, and what's really interesting about that is a lot of those big I'm gonna jump a little forward and then a little back. What's really cool about that job is I came in as the low person on the totem pole, like probably not gonna get the job, not quite big enough, not quite enough experience on a job of this scale, and got the job because they believed in me. And it was a very large horse kind of farm, personal facility in Floyd County. And they believed in me, which was really cool because I think that they came from a similar upbringing as me, blue collar, and kind of made their way. And I think they saw something in me that maybe reminded them of themselves, and were like, "We believe in this kid." And and like I said, we're super close now. I would do almost anything for them. And I love them. And but that job was monster. And I had felt like I needed subs on that job, different types of subs of things that we already do, because I didn't think my crew was big enough to even take on some of the carpentry aspects of it, with the other jobs we had going on besides that. And I had a pretty tight deadline, and it wasn't just about the deadline, like, people put things like deadlines in there with liquidated damages and things like that, and it is scary. But at the end of the day, I'm more worried about meeting a deadline because of how somebody's gonna feel if I miss it. Because when people set deadlines, it's not just, "I pick this calendar date." It's, "I pick that calendar date because I wanna have my wife's birthday, or I want to, like, celebrate Thanksgiving or something." So it's a more meaningful selection than just a random date. Um, but I was gonna bring some subs in and talk to some, and this is the deal. Subs came in, gave a price, and, came back 4 months later to do the work, and we're like, "Yeah, our prices went up." And I was like, "Oh, yeah?" I was like, "Well, you need to honor your original price." "I can't do that." "Well, then pack your stuff and leave." And I kicked him off the job because I'm just not gonna tolerate that. I committed to something, and now they did too, and I ran into one of those bleak moments where I was expecting, I think, 20 people to help, and now I didn't have that. And so we had like a rally meeting and pulled everybody in. And we got that job done in half of the amount of time that and probably about half the money, that this sub was supposed to do for us. And it was I think one of the first moments that I was like, wow. And we've had some employees here that we framed up their homes. And there's a different type of mentality when we go there because you're working with your brother or sister and you're like, I'm gonna put in a long day, and I'm not even gonna eat, and I might not even use the bathroom. I might wear a diaper so I can poop in my pants and just keep working. There's like a different type of mentality, and I've seen it on those types of things as well, where it's like, wow, like we can do a lot if we need to,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so that job, we beat the budget and the deadline, which nobody thought was possible. A lot of people thought I'd go out of business on that job, and I say me, but us, like, that job was completely impossible without the team around me, and I mean the entire team. The people picking up trash, the people pumping out the porta potties, the people sitting in the office, going through thousands of receipts to categorize and get a good record of everything, to the kid that just learned how to nail down plywood. It was all of us. And it's a pretty beautiful thing. And it is the job that I think set us into the next dimension, because I think the biggest thing that changed, I think almost anyone's capable of accomplishing anything they put their mind to. I don't know if everyone has the willpower to do that because either they're addicted to their phone or depressed or whatever. And I hope that those people figure out whatever they need to. But I think if you've got the willpower and you can achieve anything, but I think you also need those signs that I just pulled off the unimaginable. Now I can do it. And that's that trust stuff.
Yeah.
You don't really know you have it until you try it. And in trying it, you're probably going to have your trust broken a little bit and you have to be prepared for those little breaks and fix them. But I think that moment I was like, we can do anything. And I started to say after that, I want to build a hospital one day, because like that to me is like the precipice of like the biggest job you can ever do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking airlines and special electronics and codes and requirements and commercial and, I don't know if I'll ever build a hospital. But in my dreams I've built a few, and I'm willing to look at it, but I think that job proved to me that our team is capable of doing anything, you know. And Floyd Fest building that new venue was another one. We thought we had almost 2 years to build the site. We had an environmental situation. I wouldn't even call it a problem. It was just a situation that arose. We handled and had 9 months to build out 200 acres of land, roads, uh, stormwater systems, stages, electrical infrastructure, water infrastructure, and 9 months. And we pulled it off. That's completing a um, DEQ permit, for stormwater. That's insane. And when I met with the higher ups in DEQ, because it went up the food chain on that job because of how big it was, they said it was one of the most complicated stormwater projects they ever figured, just because of the amount of systems that all came to the same point of mathematical equations. Basically, you have a discharge point. It all went back to that, and you have 5 systems going to the same discharge point. It was incredibly hard, and we pulled that off in 9 months and had a successful music festival.
Yeah.
And that was insane, through weather, through permitting, through working with many, many different people. I mean, it was tremendous. I swear there were 200 people working there a day, some days. And, you know, the team of people that it took to pull that off was just I don't know if that is ever possible again. Probably, but the team at Floyd Fest was a big part of the reason why that was even possible. They're amazing to work with. And I know there's a lot of mixed opinions here locally, because it's a big event in people's backyards and stuff like that. But I'm going to say right here, right now, you know, this is coming from the horse's mouth. They're very good people, and what they're doing is a good thing, and they have put a tremendous amount of time into thinking about all their neighbors and the impact on the community, and how to do it in a thoughtful way. And I'm really proud to be a part of that project.
Yeah, you guys crushed that. What projects are you excited about, like, currently that the team's working on this year in 2026?
Yeah, there's a few. Luke's got a really awesome one going on a country club in Laurel Fork. Super cool job, cool pool and hot tub scene, outdoor scene. Really a little bit complicated in a good way. That's our kind of specialty. I'm really excited about that because it's a really cool house. Awesome client. I hate calling people clients because it's like they are, but they're more like family at this point.
Yeah, you're buddying up to them and
Yeah,
getting to know
yeah.
them.
And then we're building the Humane Society. Um building, which Floyd's needed for a very long time. It's here now, but it's makeshift. And so they were able to fundraise and pull together the money they needed and plans, and we've been working with them. And we've also been doing all the work we've done up until this point is charity for them, which has been really cool to be a part of that. And it's helped build our relationship with them. We're super excited about that. We want to totally crush that job and try to do as best we can budget wise because it is a nonprofit. We're working on an amazing retreat center. It's not a job we're taking on this year, it's a job we're doing all year. That's another just totally epic job, and honestly, tuning into our Instagram and our Facebook and our YouTube, you can see a lot of the things we're working on, and you can ask questions on there and we could talk about it right here, um and if you're questioning something that we're doing, or you like it or don't like it, or curious, you know we could talk about it. It's pretty cool. I feel like, this old timer back in the day told me, in order to keep it, you got to give it away. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but it sounds awesome. And, so I know what it means now, and I've learned throughout the years, that it kind of sucks here, like nowadays in a way. And I'm trying to kind of right that ship. back in the day, when I say back in the day, 5 to 10 years ago, there were a couple building companies around. We all worked together, and I love that. You know, R&J Construction, Harris Construction, um, and if they needed to borrow a piece of equipment or needed something I had, we worked it out. And when we were looking at similar jobs, we would talk about it in a professional way of like, let's not um let's find a way to help each other get this job of whoever needs to get it. Um because that's the friendly thing to do. And that culture is a little bit not around right now, and I miss it, and that was a good way to give away what you have, and all it did was benefit, you know. I'm not about to let somebody come in and like look at my entire computer and look at my Dropbox and figure out how to do everything. But when somebody asks me for help, 99% of the time I'm going to give it, and I will tell you that that has come back and paid dividends over the years, and not necessarily from that person. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception around that, at least with some of the people I talk to, that if I help X to get something framed up, then they owe me X to help something get framed up on my end. That dividend may not be paid forward by that person, but it comes naturally in other ways. And I can't explain it. It's a phenomenon. They talk about it in different types of religions and different types of other things. Some people call it karma. Some people call it good faith. Some people call it whatever the heck they call it. But to me, it's like paying forward, and it always comes back. I get a lot out of helping people, and I don't do it saying, man, this is going to come back and pay tenfold. I do it because it feels good in the moment. And then I've realized that now we're in business for 13 or 14 years. We haven't had that many problems.
Mm.
And I contribute a lot of it to my relationships with the freaking cosmos. Like I do. I'm like, it ends up working out. So, I think for the most part is I'm having fun. And, a lot of people say, how much longer are you gonna do it for? And my answer is I think I'm gonna do it until I'm either too old, or Rye tells me I'm not allowed to do it anymore, or it's not fun. We do want to have a plan to drive around the country. We like seeing that. Our country's a lot bigger and more beautiful than I think I even realized. And we do these trips and road trips and stuff, and it's amazing what's out there.
Yeah.
I want to see as much of it as we can. So
Sweet. Well, this has been fun.
it's been good.
Yeah.
I didn't know what we were doing, but I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about what's coming down the pipeline next.
Yeah. I mean, I think this was a good pilot episode of a podcast that you can sort of divulge your interests and your what's going on, and maybe even some sneak peeks into the industry or projects that you're doing. So it might be interesting. I run the media side of Omnibuild, but I didn't necessarily expect to be on the podcast. I just wanted you to do one.
No,
So this was our agreement.
You need to be on the podcast. I think it's important. No, Dan is a huge part of our company. He's kind of what's elevated us and pushes me to do things that I've always been like, I don't want to do that. And it's worked out really well, and I'm really grateful for that. And he's also my brother-in-law, and I care about him a whole bunch.
AKA baby bro.
Yeah, boy. We got a big bro too, but he's not here yet, man. He might come, and we hope he does. And then he could sit right over there. I am genuine about, if there's something you want to see us talk about, ask a question and we'll try and answer it. And I think, next time we should talk about the dump truck I bought by accident.
But not this time.
That's a teaser, dude. Come back.
Stay tuned, subscribe. Hit the
come
bell,
back
get notified.
and learn how I lost a bunch of money by accident.